First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to interact.
Yes.
It's truly a unique opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
It is not so unique in the sense that when you ask, it is always given. But it is unique in the sense that you are expecting immediate result from this interaction. Source always answers you. It's just sometimes it doesn't happen in the moment of your asking. But that's only ever because you're not expecting the answer to come, where in this case you're expecting it maybe a little more. You trust Esther's process of being able to deliver the clarity more than you trust your own process of being able to deliver the clarity.
Yes.
But there is really no difference. You have the same access.
Well, that actually ties into my first question. In that all my adult life I've been searching and seeking for a stronger connection to my soul, and I've done a lot of study and research and spent a lot of time in spiritual practice. And I'm looking for something that's more mentally, that I can say, yes, I've received guidance, as opposed to just saying, well, that feels good. I guess I'm...
Well, watch for it. We understand that, but watch for evidences of it. Watch for thoughts that occur to you just as someone else speaks it. Earlier today, when Esther went to get off the stage, she had released and had allowed her consciousness to return and dominate. And she began walking toward the stage. And as she came to the stage, she had the impulse to stop and look at the step. And she had just walked up the step, so she was aware that the step was solid. Jerry had mentioned to her earlier that the step is a shorter step than usual, and he wanted her to be aware that she was going to be stepping down further than she expected, or up further than she expected. But as she came to the edge of the step, her impulse was to stop. And it didn't really make sense to her. She didn't know why, and she looked at the step. But then as she started to move, she felt her wire was stuck in the crack. She was unaware of it, consciously, and yet we were aware of it. And so her impulse to stop was to keep her from pulling the microphone loose in an awkward way, or even tripping as she went down. And as she stopped, not knowing why, but doing it just the same, and felt that tug, she turned around and smiled and jerked it loose and said thank you as she stepped down the steps. A simple, not very important thing. Maybe nothing would have happened at all. But it is her way of acknowledging that she is guided from broader perspective. And those kinds of things happen to you all day, every day. And the more you stop and acknowledge them, then the more you remind yourself, I am receiving and I am consciously aware of that which I am receiving. The guidance that comes forth from within is not guiding you away from problems. It's always guiding you toward the well-being that is natural to you. And so, as you acknowledge that your life experience is always in the now, and that guidance is always present in the now, then you begin to notice more and more and more that you are not alone ever, that there is a full functioning consciousness, God force, the energy that creates worlds flowing through you. And the impact of that, as it is focused into the specifics of your now, could not be better, could not be more meaningful. In other words, we don't think that there is any guidance much more meaningful to Esther than something as simple as that. She will be driving and will have an impulse to slow. Doesn't really know why. Jerry will look up from whatever he's doing and saying, why are you slowing? And Esther will say, just felt like it. And as she will come up over the crest, there is someone on a bicycle well into the road that she could not have seen, but that we have seen. So sometimes we think what you are asking for is you would like a full description. Instead of just having the impulse to slow, you would like to be told, Esther, we're telling you to slow because there's a bicycle not knowing what he is doing out in the lane, not aware that you are barreling up over the mountain at 85 miles an hour with 100,000 pounds of weight. There is not time for you to interpret all of the nuances of the knowledge. In other words, it would make you crazy. You really don't want it. You are so much happier being guided in the flow. And so you receive hundreds of thousands of impulses in every day that lead you and guide you toward the well-being that is natural. You're zigging and zagging with well-being while there are things of not well-being that are potentially around that you don't have vibrational access to. Really, you do not want constant, steady, chattering kind of guidance about all of that. The impulse is a much more sophisticated way to go. Really, it is. The guidance that takes place in any moment relative to the content and movement in your body would be more than you could interpret in words in an entire lifetime. 1 minute of what goes on in terms of consciousness in your body, you could not express in words in an entire lifetime. You really don't want that kind of interpretation.
Right.
Accept the guidance.
My next question relates to facing fear and when we should face fear, or when it's a good idea, and when it's a good idea just to avoid it. And
we wouldn't do either one. We wouldn't face it, meaning hold it in our vibration and let it be our point of attraction, and we wouldn't avoid it, meaning not paying attention to our guidance system. We would understand fear for what it is. We would understand it as the signal that lets us know that in this moment we are focused and therefore causing an encouragement of a vibration that is contrary to the well-being that we want.
I have a specific thing in mind. I ride horses. We own and ride horses, my husband and I. And for most of my life, it's something that has been really important to me and I love a lot, and I still do. But in recent years, I have developed a certain amount of fear around it due to some accidents. I don't want to stop riding. In other words, my choice is that I could just stop doing it altogether and therefore not have to feel this fear.
Now let's talk about this in a different context. So let's say that you are like Esther. You get up in the morning and you've decided that you're going to get into your vehicle, in Esther's case, the monster bus, and you're going to move from one place to another. And so you wake up, it's a beautiful day, you feel full of anticipation, and so you get into your vehicle and off you go. But let's say that on this particular morning, you wake up, you get all ready to go, you start the engine, and as you begin to proceed, you get this feeling of uneasiness. But you have a time deadline, and so you don't respond to the uneasiness. You just go. Only to discover that you left yourself plugged in, or you left your antenna up. In other words, the uneasiness was there for a reason. But let's carry it a little further. Let's say that you have a strong feeling of uneasiness that is so close to true discomfort that it's really splitting hairs whether you call it uneasiness or uncomfortable in your skin or fear, but whatever it is, it doesn't feel good. But you push ahead anyway. Well, we wouldn't do that, because what that's saying is this action that I'm taking is somehow vibrationally mismatched with some other intent that I have. So we would stop and ponder and think other things, and as you change the subject and put the monster bus in park and decide that for now you're not going to go, and you change your thoughts and you focus upon the ducks in the stream or whatever, and the feeling goes away, and then you say, all right, I'm going to go, and then you start to go, and then that feeling comes back. You begin to associate the discomfort that is coming with the action that you're about to take. In other words, it is a misalignment of energies. My intention, which is well-being, is colliding with this action. In other words, sometimes the mood of the horse or the combination of you and the horse isn't a good combination. And that feeling that's coming forth isn't saying to us, you dummy, you've got to overcome this fear. It's saying this action is incompatible with some desire that you hold. There are only two emotions. One feels good and one feels bad. And we would not say, I'm going to face my negative emotion and stare it down. Instead, we would say, I'm going to be sensitive to my negative emotion and understand what it is. It means some thought, word, or action that I am embarking upon is contradictory to the well-being that I'm really seeking. Now, what can I do about my thought, word, or action to bring myself back into alignment? There are those that say, if you do the uncomfortable thing long enough, it will become comfortable. And it is sort of in that vein that you are saying, if I am fearful and I stare down my fear, but we are really not encouragers of that. We are encouragers of coming into alignment and then taking the action. We are encouragers always of getting rid of the fear. We would never want you to keep doing things that you feel fearful about. And maybe the path of least resistance is just not get on this horse. Maybe the path of least resistance is to get on a different horse. But we would never move forward in fear. That's like saying, I have sensors in my fingers telling me that this stove is hot, but I'm going to do the uncomfortable thing long enough. And we say, it's not ever going to get comfortable. You are never going to be comfortable doing something that is contradictory to the well-being that is natural. It's not going to get comfortable. And so, the encouragement that we would like to give all of you, and especially you, as we're having this conversation, is give yourself more of the benefit of the doubt and stop more often and say, it looked like it isn't going my way, but in reality it is. But before you can really get to that place of knowing, you have to start feeling the worthiness, the blessedness of that which is really you. It's sometimes easier for you to say, well, it didn't go right because there's something wrong, than it is for you to say, well, it is going right, I just can't see how right it's really going. Things really are going right for you, and that's the way it is supposed to be. And that's what we meant earlier when we said, if you'll stop often and make the best of where you are. In other words, this isn't going exactly the way I think it should go, but ultimately it is better. And how many things in your life? Jerry and Esther talk about this all the time, of how many pieces of properties they tried to buy that wouldn't go through. And they weren't even aware of the one that ultimately was so fantastic, that just sort of fell in their lap and turned out to be so wonderful. And then all kinds of pieces around it started falling together until all of this acreage is coming into their experience effortlessly. And it's always easier to look back and say, oh, that's why that didn't happen, and that's why that didn't happen, and if that had happened, that couldn't have happened, and oh, how wonderfully it all came together. But most of you are not willing to hang in there long enough to get the benefit of all of that hindsight, you see. While hindsight certainly goes a long way in explaining how well things were going, foresight is so much more beneficial. And the foresight that we would like you to have is, things always go well for me. Sometimes I don't understand all of the pieces, but things are always going well for me because I am a blessed being and I deserve for things to go well for me. And they always are going well for me. If I can just relax and stop fussing around this so much and accept that things really are going well for me. And then bring that right back into the specifics of this negative emotion that I'm having right now is an indication that things are going well for me. It means things are going well for me. It's part of the guidance that makes things go well for me. I'm not inappropriate with this negative emotion. I shouldn't try to suppress this negative emotion. I shouldn't try to override this negative emotion. This is guidance saying something's not lining up. Relax and chill out and take another look at it and move only in the direction of what feels good. Don't force myself in the direction of what doesn't feel good. No good ever comes from that, ever. All that facing your fear will ever do for you is desensitize yourself to fear. There are so many people that feeling ornery just feels so normal that they don't even realize that they're in the middle of a thought that is detrimental to them because they're just used to feeling ornery. And the reason they're used to feeling ornery is because they've faced orneriness. In other words, they've learned to put up with it. And we don't want you to put up with it at all. We want the slightest little piece of orneriness to feel so out of sync that you stop and say, what? What thought am I thinking that's making me feel ornery? More importantly, what thought can I think that doesn't make me feel ornery? Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, that feels better. Oh, that feels better. Oh, that feels better. Oh, not that one. Oh, that feels better. Oh, that feels better. Oh, that feels better.
I understand now. Thank you very much.
Some of those animals revel in the experience of human interaction. Some of them revile it. Some of them want to become co-creators with you in that way. Some of them don't. Some of them will put up with it and despise it. Some of them will not put up with it at all. Some of them will embrace it. So when you think about that variety, do you want to break? They call it breaking the horse, and that's what they're talking about. Do you want to break the horse's spirit, or do you want to find one that's already in alignment?
Right.
You have many intentions, you see, and every horse doesn't meet your intentions. Right. So when you say, well, I'll just modify my expectations so that I can match any horse, we say, why would you want to do that? Right. Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes, indeed.
I really appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. Very good.